What is up, Pokemon fans? Josh from the BitBlock here to take you through the site's video review for the latest Pokemon game, Pokemon Rumble U, on the Wii U eShop. The gameplay is pretty simple. Wind up Pokemon toys, duke it out in small battle arenas. It's not exactly the most complex experience. Granted, there are a lot of Pokemon to choose from, and each has its own ability to unleash two different attacks in combat. Now, as you would expect, it's important to properly choose your Pokemon type when going up against a foe. You know, water-type Pokemon can take out fire types much easier. It's basic Pokemon battle logic. You now play as a team of 4 Pokemon toys instead of by yourself like in past Rumble games. The other 3 computer Pokemon will fight alongside you. You can even select your team manually or just randomize it. But it's better to actually select them manually so that you can get some better battle results. Like I said, this time around, there are no levels, and instead, Pokebattles take place in small battle stadiums. They start out very empty and simple, but eventually add in obstacles and other props. Stuff like trees, bushes, laser beams, heat panels, and so on. I think a big problem with Pokemon Rumble U are the stages themselves. I mean, in past, you would make your way through levels, which was kind of interesting. In fact, I had really hoped the team would focus more on level design, like adding in multiple pathways, secrets to find, obstacles to interact with, and so on. And instead, they did the complete opposite by making the world as simple and boring as possible. That's not really the best direction to go in for the series when you consider that, for the most part, the actual combat involves walking up to Pokemon and mashing a button. The lackluster arenas really highlight how overly simple the gameplay is. To its credit though, Pokemon Rumble U does introduce enemy Pokemons to you in a more creative and strategical fashion than in past games. Between the rather empty combat and overly simple, uninteresting stadiums, the gameplay gets kinda old fast. Pokemon Rumble U isn't a bad-looking eShop game. There's definitely a very toy-like art style going on here. Literally every Pokemon is designed to appear as a toy figure, and in fact you can even buy real figures from GameStop and scan them into the game. There are some moments where the game does take advantage of the extra power behind the Wii U system. There's way more Pokemon on screen at once, for example, and it definitely looks more exciting. But I gotta say, it can sometimes become hard to figure out where you are on screen with all this craziness going on. The simple Pokemon models are ported from past games, but an added shine effect helps them look a little bit more like a toy. I think the game's got a nice style to it. Some of the music here is new, and some is reused from past entries in the series. Honestly, none of it is particularly catchy. It gets the job done fine, but it leaves no memorable impression on you. Due to the fact the game involves constantly battling, most of the music tracks are obviously going to be pretty fast-paced. The Pokemon toys make robotic squeaks, growls, and moans, much like they did in past games. The audio is not bad, but it's nothing particularly special. Pokemon! There are a lot of those, right? In fact, in Pokemon Rumble U, there's 620 to collect. If you're up for that challenge, it's certainly going to add in lots of replay value. After you defeat an enemy with a lot of force, they may retreat into a Pokeball capsule that you can then pick up. After the battle, you'll be able to play as that Pokemon. In order to gather them all, you'll definitely have to replay stages a few times. Of course, if taking on so many Pokemon by yourself seems like it's too much for you, you can always invite up to 3 other friends to work alongside you and compete against the enemies in cooperative multiplayer. Now, as you would expect, you can level up Pokemon by often using them in battle. Higher levels equal more powerful and can obtain new battle moves. Though it should be noted, you can only assign 2 moves to each Pokemon during a battle, which is, a little bit too simplistic in my opinion. So the issue I have with this game is that it goes in the exact opposite direction that I feel it should be heading in. The world should be more fleshed out, the combat system should be simple but more engaging. Instead, the worlds have been drastically simplified and the combat is the same as it was in the WiiWare and 3DS games. The gameplay is just rather kind of boring. It's repetitive and it requires very little skill. It's a whole lot of walk up to this patch of Pokemon, mash the attack buttons until they're gone, and repeat. It's not totally without its charm, but frankly, it all just feels a bit lifeless. If you're a huge Pokemon fan and the simple idea of collecting so many little toy Pokemon is appealing to you, then you may get some enjoyment out of this. It's kinda cool seeing just how big your collection can become. But for anyone else, it's basically an $18 button masher. I really hope that the next time we see this series, there's a lot more to it. Or they can just make Pokemon Snap 2 already. Now, that would be amazing.